camera's already running. Hello.
Sit away from the camera.
Oh no, I want to be, really, where's the camera? I want to be.
Slow going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be packing all night.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'll be packing all day and it's the night. And
It's always a bear.
it's brutal. Oh, it's brutal.
What are you talking about?
Moving.
Oh my God, it's awful.
Yeah.
I moved this year, or a year, 4 months ago. It's terrible.
Yeah. Finding all kinds of neat stuff that I haven't seen in years.
Oh, that's nice.
But, yeah, things I forgot about from years ago.
Well, don't forget recycling.
Yes. There's plenty to recycle. Salvation Army is being very cool. They're taking a lot of
Oh
stuff.
yeah, good.
They're taking just about everything we throw their way.
And reselling it at exorbitant prices.
Well,
Better than me lugging it
And
to the new house.
And supporting a right-wing agenda.
Yeah.
well, okay.
I'd
But-
really like to replace them if I could do anything in this town,
Let's see.
aside from getting an actual grocery
So is this what we're doing? We're all gonna hum?
Yes.
Where am I?
The purpose of the meeting is to, I sent out an agenda. I didn't print any.
I didn't get
Didn't
it.
kill any trees on that one.
Oh God.
there were.
I didn't get an agenda. What's
Yes,
the?
it's a very, very,
Oh, I did.
I could've
It
looked
was
earlier
like
on my
3
phone.
items.
brevity is the name of the game here on this one.
Oh yeah, I do have that somewhere.
Okay.
Why don't you mention it?
Okay, so,
Here it is. No, that's an aside. Okay. God, these.
if,
Let's see if I can find it. I don't have it. Well, I have the secretary's report.
all right, if everybody's good, we'll get
Yeah,
started.
I'm ready.
So I don't have meeting minutes for us to approve. Ryan, who was with us last time, did not forward those. So when I get them, I will send them forward and we can approve them. Public comment, Mayor Tim is here, so we should give him the floor. It's not public, but
Well, he's kind of public.
he's our elected official.
Yeah, I wanted to update you guys on this idea that we were exploring about the town ENCB and the village EPC, and the possibility of maintaining both boards or commissions, but having them both be town and village, and then also just making it a lot more clear that, because the ENCB in the very recent
Oh, that's, I don't blame him for that. It's you.
Hey Don, what are you doing?
It's here a half hour ago. When did we start meeting? 7:30?
Oh, we did.
New Year.
And you were out of town and I don't like it at 7:30. Should be at 7.
There's
I
another,
can't make 7,
Stop it.
another
unfortunately.
group
The
that meets
affordable
over
housing's from 6 to 7:30, and then this is 7:30 to
No, we don't have to go till 9.
Oh, we had,
9, for whatever.
they had discussed when I was on at 7:30. Wasn't it the time? And moved to an earlier start time. At least,
The EPC?
it's about a year ago. Okay, that's.
Well, whatever. Here we are.
Well, the
I-
idea is to share scribes, so you have one scribe for both meetings.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know. Good.
No, we started hearing from Tim.
We
Tim,
were
do you
talking about-
know who I am?
No, I don't know your,
Do you know everyone else?
yes.
I'm Marnette Sass. I live here in the village.
And you're a EPC member?
Yes, I'm a commissioner, commissar.
So the idea that we're exploring is this concept of having an environmental commission that has a very broad mandate or agenda, and then the likes of the town ENCB that has most recently focused on just reviewing land use applications before the town planning board. So just making it a lot more clear to the public and to the individuals who serve on the two boards. So if you're on the ENCB, you would be looking at land use applications for both the town planning board, that are before the town planning board and before the village planning board. And if you're on what is currently the village EPC, that would be an environmental, broader mandate. You could look at anything you want, policy, reviewing other things that are going on in the community, but just having two different types of agendas.
Well, it's not just reviewing things. We take on projects every year. We actually do things.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that would continue to be the mandate of the EPC.
Mhm.
Would the
Great.
EPC then be doing these projects townwide?
Whatever they want. It would be
Well,
up
no,
to
but
the.
what I'm saying is, would that mean, like, say, the bag ban, would that then extend to the town, for
They would
example?
certainly have that option to take the likes of the or the ban on plastic bags and present it to the town board as well as, as the EPC did when they presented to the village board.
Okay, and then, since the town, board, environmental board has board status, then would they be then entitled to all of the documents and all of the protocol that's involved in developments occurring in the village?
Yes, that would be
Okay,
the thing.
I would definitely be in favor of that. It's interesting, but then basically, how would our membership, then we would have to choose which part we would be on, or is it would be, I don't understand how that would work exactly. Would you choose to be on one portion of this or another?
Well, the details of the existing membership and then how new members would be added, that really hasn't, we haven't gotten to that level. We're just talking about the general concept.
Could there be a moratorium on development until that's figured out?
I'm with her.
Yeah, because moratorium laws are just so much fun to get passed.
Yeah, they
Well,
are.
because if you don't have any, you've got to have a mechanism for dealing with stuff, and if you don't, you got to not deal with it until you do.
Well, I think probably a first step would be to look at the existing membership of the EPC and the existing membership of the ENCB and seeing if anyone wants to move or who wants to stay where they currently are. Both boards need additional people, so I think that's where you start.
I'm not entirely familiar with everything the ENCB does. Do they currently have oversight authority, like the planning and development? Do things already come to them first?
Do you have
before they get
this?
Final approval?
Do you have this?
Yes, they do.
No.
They also
Well,
have,
it's
like I said,
online,
much better
and it's
access
what
to
they
tools and
do.
information,
Here,
and much more
just
supportive
look at it.
infrastructure in the town than we have in the village. In other words, I could never imagine what happened to me at Woodland Pond happening to the town board. I'm sure they would know what was going on with this thing right now, with the pit, if it were, whereas we're clueless.
Would the arrangement that you're suggesting limit the scope of what the ENCB does? Like, do they currently do the oversight and then also the larger environmental issues?
No, they currently just look at land use
Just, okay,
applications.
okay.
Well, it really is the most important environmental factor, because there's really nothing beats a bulldozer when it comes to destroying the environment.
Well, they check rezoning, subdivision, fill permits or vacancies.
It's just like any land use law or land use
Yeah, but I'm
policy.
spelling it out if it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And any other change in how land is used in the town now.
So essentially, there wouldn't be much change to what either group did, except for membership would be both town and village, and also the scope of the projects would encompass both the town and the village. But essentially, the missions of each group would remain as they are.
But we'd have to go, let's say we make a recommendation about recycling. we have, and we want something to happen throughout the town, we have to go to the town
Well,
board.
Right, you
The
could make a
village-
change where now the village EPC, which would then become a town and village EPC,
Sure.
would have the authority to make a recommendation
To
to
both.
either governmental board.
Or either.
Or both.
Either or both, okay.
Either or.
well,
There are
okay.
joint meetings as well between town and village that we could report to, as opposed to doing them both separately. We could attend joint meetings if we have.
I guess it could be interesting too, you could have a recommendation that you're making to both boards, and then only one board follows through,
Oh, that'd be
right?
fun.
Why not?
Well,
Tom, just, I'm trying to understand, I know we spoke about this a little bit at our last meeting, what is the problem to be solved here? And, you know, this is not something that emerged from the village board, this is your idea, so it might be a good idea, but when you say we, I wonder who the we is, and where
The
this.
we is me, I'm not saying.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so I just, the statement I made at the last village board meeting is that there's a plan for this committee. Once we have GIS capability, this committee will have the ability to look at things in front of the planning board, and will have the ability to approve them. That was being talked about here. I am concerned that adding the need to get things approved by the village and the town adds a whole other level of complexity and bureaucracy and difficulty. And the last point I made when we talked about this at the meeting, yeah, there are members of the town board who are actively opposed to things like the plastic bag law. And I don't know whether we would have been able to accomplish that in this new. So there's a point and a counterpoint. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. I just want to throw out both sides of the question.
I agree with Don there. The jurisdictional differences and different viewpoints, well, specifically related to the plastic ban, is definitely an issue. But I think in the larger context, both being environmentally related, being the fact that the mere difference between the town and the village is a political boundary, not an ecological one. We're still an MS4 community. We still share the Wallkill River. We still share these important natural resources that we both depend on, and it creates a better quality of life for not just us in the village, but for the town as well. So I think that with the jurisdictional thing, grievances from the town as opposed to the village could be solved by creating some form of, I wouldn't say cross authority for a village person to have the authority to deal specifically with town matters, but I think that those
Village people live in the town.
well, I know that, but I'm saying the specific EPC overlooks the village specifically right now. But what I'm saying is, like, if you wanted to implement the plastic bag ban for the town, only the people who live in the town can make an official recommendation. The EPC can still actively participate and help deal with it, but the final call for
Is the village, is the town board, yeah.
well, not the final. The final call is the town board. I'm saying for the
We
final.
both have to approve.
The ENC, the
We
ENC,
already have the village.
no, the ENCB would make the recommendation on behalf of someone who lives in the town with the help of us to propose a plastic bag ban to the town.
No,
Not
no,
under this,
no.
not under this. We would have, hypothetically, we would have members on the committee that were town members.
No, what I'm saying is with the differences between the village and the town, that
I like you better.
the jurisdictional differences would allow for someone in the town to articulate town issues a lot better than, say, the village. And I think that we could still work together as one body, but specific issues relating to just the town or just the village could still be split between.
No, they
There's
really
no such
can't.
thing as just
They
the
really
town.
can't.
Well,
There's a village and there's a town, but the village is in the town.
yes, I know that, obviously.
So every village resident is a town resident.
I know, but I'm just saying for the sake of the EPC and ENCB, yes, they can.
But it's not about jurisdictions with this proposal. It's just about two bodies having different mandates. That's all. A broad mandate and a narrow.
But I think if we just look at the plastic bag ban as an example, if we wanted to have the plastic bag ban be town-wide, it would also need to be approved by the town and the village.
Yeah.
So
But no, it's
Is that
saying
kind
that
of-
the
it would not.
ENCB has to do it. No, the
No,
ENCB
they-
is
Well, no,
going to
under
do-
this law, they
it's going
wouldn't.
to- Is going to do land.
So let's pretend that
land.
there is no plastic ban.
Yeah.
Ban, and you have a town and village EPC. The town and village EPC can make a suggestion for a law change, and they could say, village board, you have local laws, you could adopt this law. And they say, town board, you can adopt this law. If it's only adopted by the village, it's only going to take place
Yeah.
within the village.
Right.
And that,
Yeah.
and that's political, and that's what it is. It's, we can't make it only
It
ecological,
gives,
it's a
it gives
political
the
thing.
EPC a whole lot more influence.
Well, no, I'm all for this. I'm just saying, with relation to specific issues, I think the town resident. I mean, even though I'm a town resident, yes, technically, but people who were previously serving or are serving on the ENCB would be more privy to the issues concerning the EPC or ENCB. Rather, like, we have the mandate to oversee environmental matters relating from anything from broad policy to specific land use, whereas ENCB is specifically land use. I mean, combining those mandates would be a great thing, but if there is, I mean, any concerns between the town and village differences and differences in mandates, I think that they could be solved by combining this. But specifically with MS4, I think this would definitely be beneficial because it would give us more grasp on how the village sees its place and then how the town sees its role on the outskirts of the village and how each plays into stormwater management. I mean,
Right, but I'm sure you agree more than anyone.
Yeah.
MS4 compliance, like stormwater doesn't really, they're not
Yeah.
mindful of municipal boundaries.
No, no.
Stormwater's gonna go wherever it wants, so we need a comprehensive plan for the entire town, including the village.
Yes, yeah,
So-
I agree with that.
There's a couple, I'm seeing two different sides to this. The one side that I see as being specifically beneficial for the EPC is that we've had issues with recruitment and retention in terms of this commission. We had Joanna Torres move to the town side and then she was out. Now I'm moving to the town.
Well,
I would
gosh.
hypothetically be out. So
Gosh.
that's one thing, right? And that would be a benefit. And then I also see what I think Don is suggesting, which is that the original intent of the law creating the EPC was to empower a commission that had the oversight that the ENCB does at the village level. And that to a degree, we would be undercutting that original vision or that original mission by ceding that authority to the ENCB. So we're basically,
Oh, I see.
you see what I'm saying? So now the ENCB does all of the land use application stuff. The EPC is relegated to what we do, which is fine.
Then you would have that work being done, because currently it's
Yeah.
not being done.
That's right.
Exactly.
We haven't done anything.
But it would be done if we got the GIS technology, created the map, got it through the village, and the EPC became a board. Now there's
We
an
have the
ENCB.
we have the GIS.
Right.
technology.
They
But
have
water-
it.
Oh,
You've had it all.
oh,
Why
long
should
time
we
ago.
redo it?
Right.
We've had all of this.
It's,
So-
it's just not happening.
One
So
step
what we're trying
closer
to do,
to-
what we're trying to do is come up with a solution that can be realized. Because the village already paid like $1,300 for
When-
a GIS license
and
that's not
from-
being used.
When was
When
that?
did they do that?
When Brad White was the planner.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I spoke to Dave a bunch of times throughout the summer and fall, and he tried to get AirDOS, the vendor for the software ArcGIS, and he said that the licensing ran out and
Correct.
yeah,
It's
stuff.
$400 a year after the initial $1,300 licensing fee.
And I thought money was earmarked last year for it and never got spent. And then Dave said he was going to work on it, and then I guess it just
Right.
disappeared.
Well, it's
And that's
there now.
the same point of the EPC has only so much emotional energy to spend on reviews of anything, right? So if you want to add reviews of land use applications, then you could do that. But you're also looking at broader environmental policy, looking at MS4. It's like we really need to do more than just look at applications before planning boards, and that's the function of this EPC.
I'd be curious just to hear, because Tim, it sounds like what you're saying is that, well, this is your idea, so I would be curious to hear, Don, your perspective on why staying the course with the original plan to sort of lead the EPC to becoming a commission would be a better idea than this, if you could just kind of spell it out.
Well, I think the focus on the planning stuff, oh, I guess I should, is this being recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. We always yell at people to come up to the microphone, so I guess I gotta do the same thing. I think the focus on the planning aspect is just one part of the EPC's mandate, and I think it's an important one, but I think the more important function of the EPC is that each and every commissioner has a pet issue. I spoke with one of the members of the Climate Action Committee today, Miriam Strauss, who just moved to the village. So she's eligible to be a commissioner on this,
Oh, that
on
would
this
be
board.
awesome.
That's great.
And
She's already the,
her her issue would be climate change.
right.
We all pick an issue and move it, and ideally, over the course of a year, bring something to the village board on our issue, which means 5 issues that may not have come to the village board's attention, come to their attention.
That's right.
There is
Yeah.
already, she's already the chair of the group, or I'm not sure exactly what her role is, but it's something like chair, or they switch chairs all the time, of the Climate Action Coalition.
Right.
They're already
But-
doing that.
but
There's
Tom,
already a
how-
commission doing that. I mean, they could come and meet with us or whatever if they want to, but
How does that
Well,
change?
what about the other issues for the other commissioners? That was just one example. You know, that's what the, and I was just making the point that the planning function, once, and I'm a little confused about the whole GIS thing, because if we have had GIS capability, why don't we have the maps, and if we're still paying for it, so I don't, we'll talk about that offline, yeah, it's just, I don't know what.
that kind of stuff happens.
My understanding is as soon as we have the GIS maps, this commission can become a board and would look at land use in the village. And there's not that many new land use proposals that come to the village in a typical year. There's some, but it would still leave the commission with enough time to do the primary mission, which is to each have your individual
No, I
passion.
disagree. The planning board has a very busy agenda.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what their agenda is, but
Well,
I know there's land that's of issue.
We
At
have,
any one time, they're looking at.
we have been using it as a
And
threshold.
agendas are available.
We have been using it as a threshold, and it required a secret.
You have
And
to
that's
go
what,
online.
that's what this commission would look at.
Yeah, I would look more broadly than that.
Well, that's a conversation, but that's.
And I don't believe that's what the ENCB does. They don't look at you know, they look at many more applications before the town planning board.
Well, that's interesting. I'm just saying what this commission has done and what we've done. And there haven't been, using that criteria, maybe that's a good criteria, maybe it's a bad criteria, but using that criteria, there haven't been that many, it hasn't been overwhelming. So I am concerned about the balance between the planning aspect and the creative. Everyone has their project, which they bring to the village.
Well, that's what we're trying to fix by having 2 separate boards. So you have one board or commission that focuses on individuals with their pet projects, and then the other board that has the narrow focus where you're only looking at land use applications.
What's the fix? What's being fixed?
What's the fix is that currently we're not looking at land use applications in the village. We're just not. Right? And we're not looking at pet projects in the town. That's the fix.
Well, we haven't.
So you have town residents who can serve on this commission with a broad mandate, and then you have village residents who can serve on the ENCB that has its more narrow mandate. That's the fix.
The first part of that is extremely concerning, and because of the fact that, you know, that is the problem. I mean, if you look at what's left to develop in the areas around the development, you know, all of that land, all the land around the mill road, that's only in the village because it was annexed by the village to favor developers who wanted municipal water.
Mhm.
Okay, and the town ENCB, they're much better prepared and set up to look at land use. We've been fighting for how long to just get simple communication between the planning board, to get, you know, simple access to documents, simply be, you know, updated on what's going on with developments. It doesn't happen. They have that in the town. I don't know whether it's the board members that are better. I don't know whether it's the planning board that's more open to this. I don't know. I don't know. I just know that we've been trying. It's something that we've been trying for years. And and that in Woodland Pond, that the environmental commission was deliberately kept in the dark and had to fight for every scrap of information. And I'd hate to have to go through that again. And I feel like that's exactly what would happen again, because nothing really has changed. And I think that if the town, ENCB, if they had jurisdiction over land use develops in the village, that would be a benefit. We would benefit from the scrutiny. We would benefit from, I guess, more respect, more integrated, cooperative working situation.
I
And
agree.
it would also circumvent what was trying to happen here. It would actually solve a lot of problems, even if we just did that. Even if we just did that, and it would be okay if, like, say, okay, one or two of us, went to those meetings, or especially when something came up for the village. But for that to have that chain of communication open and have have it be open and openly demanded, so that we don't get blindsided the way we were with.
Yes.
I mean, over the summer, while I wasn't working, I attended, I don't know, a couple, or probably about a dozen planning board meetings from May through June or July. I mean, there was nothing really significant that I noticed, no type 2, huge type 2 actions or anything, but I think that if we do band together, there should be a designated liaison that attends every village and town planning board meeting, and on top of not of just looking at applications, but they actually attend the meetings and can maybe even talk to the other parties or get the other parties' insight for, by party I mean applicant, for their land use.
What I think would be an easier fix would be that there be some kind of a mechanism whereby the planning board is compelled to provide us with that information, regardless of whether someone is actually there or not. That information should just be
I
forwarded.
believe that's how the ENCB in the town is currently
It just comes.
in addition to having an ENCB person attend town planning board meetings.
Yeah, I'm all for
They
that.
currently attend.
So couldn't we have the village planning board deliver that information to the EPC?
Well, if we get
Well,
board
you
status.
could, except you only have X number of hours in the day, and you're already looking at your various pet projects, so you want to add another.
I don't think that if we
What's
had
the
that
ENCB
information.
4 hours? I don't understand.
Because they're only looking at land use applications, that's the difference.
I mean,
That is the difference.
I think if the information were available, it would be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, I've 4 hours a day on a bus to do absolutely nothing but read, and that would be a great time for me to read land use applications of that
I
happen.
think access is the issue more so than time.
Well, it's also the people, like both the ENCB and the EPC need additional people.
The ENCB has a similar situation with membership.
I don't know exactly their numbers, but they definitely need at least one new person.
What kind of feedback have you received from them about this? Have you received that either?
I've spoken with the former chair. I've spoken to at least 3 former chairs about this idea.
Well, our best
They all
water
said it
person
seemed
now,
pretty straightforward.
the guy that was really into water, that knew all about water, he died.
Well,
Yeah.
he was chair for a long time.
He wasn't the chair, but he was very valuable. Well, I'm not sure who the chair is now. It's
So
not right.
I am hearing and understanding the argument about having the NCB extend to the village. I hear what people are saying. I'm wondering what is the advantage of taking the EPC and extending it townwide?
Well, bad ban. Let's just start there.
MS4 is a huge thing.
I think what Noah pointed out and what you echoed as well was that the boundaries are superficial or artificial. The river runs through it, you know what I mean? So the issues that affect the village also affect the town. Our stormwater from the village ends up in the town. It's all part of the same.
And also, doesn't the village wastewater treatment plant treat a few 100,000 gallons of town water from the sewer line on not Ohioville, Ohioville has their own wastewater treatment plant. I'm talking about Paltz Corners Road. From the high school, doesn't that have a sewage artery going
Sure,
up
we
to
have
me?
several,
Was
there
it-
are town sewer districts.
Yeah, and village sewer districts.
And the matter is processed at the Huguenot Street Sewage Treatment Plant, and the effluent is shot into the Walkill River.
I mean, that's even
Whether
more.
it's village, town, sewage.
That's even more the reason for us to combine, because It's
We're
clearly,
not really combining, that's not even what's being.
okay, I mean, all right, I was speaking in generalities. I know it's
Well,
not,
it's not accurate.
okay, but what I'm trying to say is I think it would be beneficial to pool all our resources since we're having membership issues, recruitment issues, and focus on, obviously there's a good portion of people here who want to focus on land use law, and then there's also the broader people. So I think that somehow, John, if you could send out a memo maybe to the ENCB head and maybe invite them or him to the next meeting next month or in 2 weeks, whenever the ENCB meets, maybe he can invite us and we can speak our thoughts.
Here's a permutation that I'm just trying to work through. Let's say that the village EPC were to get board status. What would be lost through this merger, so to speak? What would be lost through this combination of membership, if that were to happen?
Are we talking about combining membership?
We're talking about shared members from the
opening up
town and village.
Yeah, but we
Opening up
would have
membership.
different, I mean, we have
Mandates, different,
mandates, we
Right.
would have different people too.
right.
So
Yeah,
I-
that sounds
you
membership recruitment issue.
Well, we could have someone serve on
Who's on
both.
both, it
If
wouldn't
someone
be
wanted to
against the
serve on
law,
both, they certainly could.
but they would
Assuming the
be
meetings are
separate
different
groups.
dates.
That's true now, though.
No,
I guess they can't come here, we can go there.
Yeah, any one of
Oh,
us
gee.
could join, in fact, that's been discussed as well. I'm
But
thinking
you
about
cannot
doing-
review a village project.
But if I could, for example, I mean, you know,
But
If
they
one
could
of us
not do
join-
the village project,
yeah,
right?
I would
So-
totally, I mean, I guess that's a
Why
separate
would you
issue.
join?
Both things wouldn't necessarily have to be done. You could grant, I don't know, I mean, I don't know how this would work legally, but you could theoretically, I imagine, you could grant the town ENCB jurisdiction over the village developments.
That's the
that's
idea.
the
So
whole
you could just do
idea.
that. I mean, what I'm saying, that could simply be done without affecting the policy or anything else.
Well,
Would you
it'd have
then
to be a
want to
law.
have the village
Yeah.
residents able to serve on the ENCB?
Yes, of course, wouldn't that be the result of that?
Yes.
No. Yeah,
Yeah,
That's the
so that seems
idea.
pretty simple, like, why not do that?
well, that's what's
There's no
being
reason.
proposed.
There's no, right, well, you've got two things being proposed, you've got that, and then you've got the extension of the environmental policy board to the town. I think the two, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with either one of those
You
things.
I
certainly
don't either.
keep, you
Do
can
it.
certainly keep the EPC with village residents only.
Why do that?
Oh, but
I
they-
don't
Yeah,
We
Well, I
wouldn't
mean,
need
it's
to.
so messed up.
We would no longer need to become a board because
We
would
can't
get-
even talk about this.
Right, so the only thing that would change for the EPC would be that we would be allowed to have members from the town. That's the only thing that would change.
No, we could also
And we
go
could
to
also-
to the town board and make proposals.
Right,
That's
and
the
make proposals.
difference.
Okay, right.
And that
right.
would be good. We have could I ask you not to call them pet projects? That sounds.
I
bad.
was, that was Don's
Oh, I beg your
phrase,
pardon.
pet
Could you
projects.
not, well, whoever.
Your code
There are
said you
specific projects, are special projects, if that's acceptable.
Certainly. A point I've made a couple times, I made it very inartfully at our last meeting, is that there is a difference between historically and I think contemporarily, how the village as a community looks at things and how the town looks at things. And the example that I gave, it applies directly to planning and projects. You come up the thruway, and you go down Main Street, the section that falls into the town. And it looks like any town in the USA. And when you get to the village border, that's all of a sudden where it looks like the historic village of New Paltz that we all love.
Oh, the Medusa building?
I mean,
That's
And
just
I am
historical.
concerned,
Yeah,
I am concerned that
I don't know.
giving the town, a town entity, jurisdiction over village planning, I have some cultural concerns. Maybe I'm the only one who sees those cultural concerns. And I don't mean to be offensive to anyone in town, saying they're not good, they're not right, they're not green. But historically, this village has been different
I disagree with you.
Have you ever
I don't think the town would have had gay marriages. I don't think the town would have had a plastic bag
I
ban.
completely disagree with you.
That's fine.
Can you?
Yeah, I don't think people in the village
It's still-
identify themselves as more progressive, and people in the town outside the village identify themselves as less progressive.
No, I agree, they don't identify themselves that way, but that has been the track record.
No, it
You
has
would not have had gay
Well-
marriages in the town of New Paltz.
Well,
Well, the gay marriage that's completely irrelevant. Completely.
No, I'm talking
What
about
is it?
culture.
it's,
I'm talking about
Culture, but have you ever watched it? The whole point about reviewing reviewing a planning board application, have you ever watched the town environmental board review a planning board application? They do a damn good job.
Mhm.
And they have the tools and the expertise to do it. We don't. I would welcome their scrutiny. They have, are you kidding me? What's the culture of the town? I mean.
Climate
look
Action
at-
Coalition
look
is
at
the culture of the town.
Climate Action Coalition.
Those folks live
They live in the town, right, but
outside
they
the
meet here.
village.
well, we
Right.
would need to have
But-
village, I'm sorry. So, but it'd be good if there were some village residents who were on the ENCB who could help to maintain that culture that I don't quite see as strongly as you, but it could be maintained that way.
I see
We
the
could have
Crossroads
villagers
Walmart.
on there, and that would be fine.
Crossroads. Did you, I mean, you were around for the Crossroads. I don't know how well
The difference in culture might not manifest itself in the environmental aspect so much as other
Yeah.
areas of town governance.
well, the storm.
Yeah, I would
The
definitely.
environmentalists are environmentalists on both sides, but the other entities may have different makeups. We have different makeups from time to time.
I mean, the only maybe possible issue, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with this, that the town has a lot more developable land than the village. So that depending on who gets on the ENCB, they may have that perspective of inviting economic growth at the sacrifice of some certain environmental natural resource or whatever it may be. That's just a superfluous example, but I definitely could see that happening. I don't think people get on the ENCB to go against the environment, so yeah, there could be that issue, but I
The planning
think,
board,
Yeah.
they're not required to heed the advice
Oh,
or recommendations
oh,
of the
No.
ENCB.
no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the direction, the main.
The ENCB can't stop or promote a project.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. They could voice their support for a project.
That's right, but they have no, they make
Oh, they have no-
recommendations.
They could also research the heck out of it and find some ways to.
Well, I wish they'd
Stop
get
things.
going on the, the thing at the beginning of, right off the thruway, but that's a different
Oh,
subject.
right, the water park.
Oh, God. But, so your point, Noah, I didn't quite understand.
My point is, I think Don has a good reason to have a slight argument to say that yes, the town board or town ENCB members may have a different focus or different. I'm not saying that they do, but they could have oppositional views to the village, which
They could.
So
Anything is
as,
possible.
as of right now, these are just kind of ideas germinating. We're just kind of
Can't we
tossing
go
around.
further?
We're just kind of. So let's continue the conversation and give it some thought, and let's get in touch with the ENCB and see what their thoughts and concerns are. And have additional time to have conversations amongst ourselves.
And
No,
then,
you're anticipating that you could have like a membership breakout of town outside the village members on the ENCB and village members
No.
on the ENCB.
I mean-
Just look at things differently based on the neighborhoods where they.
no. I mean, I was saying that could happen. I'm saying it would be like when we combine our interests. I mean, yes, we'll have different mandates, but the town ENCB members have different motivations than us. I mean, yes, some of our motivations are similar, but specific people who want to focus on land use law for the town and village in the situation where we combine our authorities can do so, and then so can the people from the EPC. They can look at the specific land use issues, while there's also the department or area of the ENCB, EPC, whatever it may be, merger, combination, whatever.
It's not a merger.
But we also don't have an EPC that's looking at land use
Yeah,
applications.
exactly. But I'm saying that the dedicated ENC board
We need that.
will combine EPC members onto that aspect of the new organization and have that look at land use applications for the town and village. And meanwhile, there will be other members focusing on broader, more policy-oriented issues, say for this MS4 planning or climate action planning, things like that.
I mean,
Because, I mean, if we focus too narrowly, we'll lose sight of things. And if we,
Who's gonna focus too narrowly?
if we all decide to focus on the land use law application aspects of the ENCB.
Right, that's why you have two separate boards or commissions.
Yeah, exactly.
One with narrow, one with broad.
That's what I'm trying to
So you
say.
give people, because different people have different skill sets, different
Exactly.
interests.
I'm trying to say, that's what I'm trying
So you
to,
go where you want.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It won't be like set up like, oh, we have 4 people in land use, 4 people in broad policy. No, it'll be people just get drawn to that interest. And I definitely agree with what you're saying, that we should definitely maintain the broad and narrow focus of different elements of our current committees and
And
boards.
I would love to have some environmental review of projects before the building planning board.
Yeah, I would love that too. It's just a matter of making that happen.
And this is a way to do that.
Yeah.
Hands-on and all the consultant reports.
And people
There-
don't seem to really understand your proposal, if I might be so bold. They keep thinking it's a combined thing and stuff. Is there any way that you could just, or perhaps you don't want to do this, but put some of it on paper? Just to outline, because people seem to think we're going to be combined and that we won't, and then we'll,
I sent that note to this board where I tried to use as few words as possible to
Did I
make
get
it
that?
really succinct.
Yeah, it was like a week and a half ago. I spoke to Don about it through the email. Yeah, I mean, definitely a good idea. I think the next
No,
step,
I don't think it was fair enough.
rather than keep on talking about it here, we should sit down with the ENCB and articulate, have a stakeholder meeting, whatever it may be, to say, we both agree on this, we don't agree on this, where can we work out a viable plan to maintain the ENCB's ability to review permitting and land use applications while the EPC can develop their own ability to oversee land use applications within the village under this new idea.
I would
That's
echo,
not
I
the
would just echo something that Noah said. I think I would personally like more time to consider the issue and to have conversations with other individuals. I agree that we should reach out to the ENCB and get their feedback. I think it's an interesting idea. I'm not necessarily dismissive of it at all. I think it's, I understand that your
They were trying to
perspective.
just help this commission where, you know,
I
you're
understand.
losing another member and you have people in the town who probably would be very interested in serving on this type of commission.
well, I think that's true, and what are we gonna get? We'll have to do it with meeting with the ENCB. I mean, what? Well, they're gonna do land use and we're gonna do other stuff. So it's kind of frustrating.
Well, like if Rachel wants to take a particular interest in the pit issue and different land use issues within the village, she can be on that leg of the land use law aspect.
Well, she can join the ENCB anyway. Can we
But
do
the
anything
ENCB
else?
is not reviewing projects in the village. So
Exactly.
I know.
So
But
let's,
she would
But they would be able to, and we don't really right now have the capacity. There's not 1, 2, 3 of us after he moved.
Well, that's what I was saying before about
I
the
agree
X
with
number
you.
of hours in the day. So you could, we could potentially make a change where you have the ENCB have town and village representation, and they're looking at projects across the
Sure.
village and the town, and then you could still, if you wanted to, keep the EPC as village-only membership.
I think,
Why would
I
we
think
do
the
that?
opposite would be what
I don't know.
What Don's concern is that I don't think that would be the problem. I think it would be the opposite.
What's the
I-
opposite?
That you would have only people in the village reviewing only village land use. I think it's Don's concern that there would be people from outside the village.
So,
Yeah.
Having input on that. I think we should spend some more time thinking about it. I think we've spent a good amount of time talking about it here. I would like to reach out
So
to.
you're gonna touch base with like
Yeah.
Mike Dimitrovic?
Yeah, I'll touch base with.
have you
yeah.
met with the ENCB about this idea yet?
I've spoken with 3 or 4 of the former
Oh,
chairs.
okay, so they at least know what's being discussed. I
Tim,
think it's a
you
great
wanna take
idea.
this? Just flip this up if you have time. You can just take that sheet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
We'll do, we'll expedite, some of this stuff. Don, did you have any further input on that?
Oh, no, I think it's a good exercise. I think it's, yeah, no one has spoken to the current ENCB yet about this.
Right.
So that's the logical next step.
Okay.
You know, I don't think there's any bad outcomes.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
Secretary's report, and did you guys have a chance to look
Yeah,
at it?
I did.
Everybody feeling good about it?
Fine.
I glanced at it.
Here's a copy.
Yeah, I thought you did a good job of,
It's standard issue, it lists some of the things that we've done, it lists our budget I'll go over recommendations if you, do you get a copy?
That's what it looked
Good.
today.
The recommendations that I made was for an operating budget of $250, which was what was asked for last year. I don't even think we used it.
yeah, but aren't we gonna do those signs?
That's a separate, there's a separate allocation of $200 for that.
Oh,
So that's not part of our operating budget. The only thing we spent money on was the volunteer fair. And did we have to pay for our table at the airport thing? No.
I don't think so.
So the only thing we spent money on was the volunteer fair. I'll ask for the $250. That's what we asked for last time.
probably if we needed more, we could get it. Don't you think we could be
Yeah,
over?
if someone wants to go to a conference or a training or something,
Yeah.
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 The other thing I requested was a dedicated secretary. Are you going to be?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
why they changed the meeting time.
Okay,
and,
good. We had
Thank
some turnover there, so as long as Katie will be with us, we're in good shape there. And then I also made a general request for the recycling list to be distributed via a water bill. And that would cost money, I suppose, in paper and mail.
Not much.
Okay. So that was all I made for recommendations. The rest was a list of things that we did.
What about the website? Of course, that's probably a lost cause here.
The village website?
Yeah.
It's on the agenda for tomorrow.
And
The
what?
village board.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's been on the agenda many times.
That's the side of the board.
No? Pardon?
Yeah.
No?
No, and,
That's since you've been on the board, okay.
yeah. And I guess, yeah.
No
the
wonder
question-
it hasn't happened.
No, I guess the question is, do we want to?
I couldn't update this because I had surgery, but I had to do it by hand. But there's this new place in town, the Computer Hut, that does recycling and fixing computers, and it's terrific for us on the buybacks. They buy back also.
And is this what you want to go in the village water bill? Some version
No,
of this?
well, it needs to be updated, but like that.
Pelican Day.
Similar.
I'll send, I have to get more copies and I'll send Katie
That would be
an
lovely.
updated copy. But I had to do it by hand on the back because I know that you're dying for a copy.
I can't go to the club fair tomorrow, I have to go to a work training, which is really horrible.
No, that's terrible.
I know.
I'd go for you if I
I
felt.
wish I
well.
could go to the club fair.
So there we are. I thought it was a good report. It did look like we were doing something. Are you okay?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Yep. All right, so if we're good with the secretary's report, we'll move on. I'll deliver that to the village board tomorrow. I'm on the agenda.
Yes, you are.
Great. Okay,
And you'll take some of these? Oh, my gosh.
Sure.
I gotta give you some more. What'd I do with them? I just had them. I'll find them.
So it's
the
stormwater.
other, we'll get you on there in 1 second. Just one other
Yeah,
thing I wanted to just, for the order of everybody, myself and Rachel, we have been talking with the village planner and Jason Rosenberg from the Shade Tree Commission about rain gardens and cisterns, looking for locations, looking for, to get grants to do that kind of work. I don't know if we've ever mentioned it in this forum, so I wanted to just mention it.
It was online or something.
I have a solution to your money issue right here. Boom. That's a good segue, right?
Go for it.
Stormwater utility is, I looked into it the past few days. It's a way to not only help using a market-based form of incentivizing, sanctioning, whatever it may be, to encourage less impervious surface coverage and less development through the implementation of even green infrastructure, things like that. But it's basically the effect runoff had of the runoff from a certain property based on the total development of a certain land parcel, and based on that that single development is like a residential house or non-residential development. Those are called equivalent residential units, which are basically the coefficient of whatever cost amount we include to measure the amount of runoff coming off a specific property and going into our storm system and causing more ecological damage, more operational and maintenance costs for our sewage infrastructure, things like that. And basically it could be a tax, or it could be incentive, it could be a credit to allow for the citizens or landowners in this case to find ways for them to mitigate runoff on their property or develop less intensely, or at least take a second look at their development plans, rather than having a situation that we have now where people can build out on parcels that are totally illegal, like a Mohonk. The new, I live a block away from there. Down at Mohonk, those 2 new houses were built out of code, the driveway's unsafe, out of code. And not only that, the fact that the degree of slope and the amount of impervious surface coverage there creates a storm drain right into the little creek by the rail trail, and that little creek flushes into the river, carrying unknown amounts of contaminants, sediment, and basically has led to, or has increased the ecological degradation of the river. So what I'm advocating for is the stormwater utility fee. It's basically, I'm sometimes using specific examples, but it's a broad concept, but it takes a lot of work to get it off the ground. But what it will do is provide an avenue for revenue generation, and in this case funding for green infrastructure projects or stormwater infrastructure improvements, or improving the capacity of our wastewater treatment plants for now and in the future. And it's not like it's a one-time balloon payment. It's a consistent revenue generating plan that not only helps the town alleviate consent orders, MS4 related issues, but it also has a positive effect on the environment, and it also allows the citizens to buy in and motivate their own personal dealings with their property to basically become more ecologically sensitive and more considerate of the amount of development on their land that causes X amount of loss of green non-developed lands. That in this case would be to wastewater, or not wastewater, stormwater issues. So, I mean, I have a bunch of literature here I can pass around.
Did Syracuse do this?
No, Syracuse does not do this, but
Somebody does.
well, there's over 800 municipalities in the country that do it. I mean, Seattle does it. They charge the highest prices in the country, but their stormwater management system is bar none one of the best in the country. I'm not saying that's not feasible here. Obviously, we're a population of 8,000, but there's case studies I've selected in here from municipalities. This is one specific example. Union, Ohio. It's a small city of 8,000 people, and they generate $100,000 a year by implementing the stormwater utility. A certain percentage goes towards personnel stuff, operations and maintenance, but 50,000 of that is used for green infrastructure, credits, whatever it takes for the municipality to lessen its
I like it.
amount of, let's say, I guess, would be more like stress, the amount of stress on a specific wastewater or stormwater infrastructure system. So I think that this would be a great way to do it, and it takes a lot of interdepartmental work.
Is that like a new tax, basically?
It could, well, the thing
Like
is,
a utility bill.
well,
You use utility.
it could be a tax, it could be a credit.
Be
I mean,
imposed
it's like a blank slate. You just have this one idea on top, and there's different flat rate systems, tiered rate, variable rate. Tiered rate would be like residential properties over 2,000 square feet get charged this rate. Meanwhile, non-residentials over this amount get charged this rate. Multifamilies get charged this
No,
rate.
are you gonna
things like-
take this on as a project?
Well, it's not,
and-
I simply cannot do anything more than talk about it right now, because this requires the village board, village planning board.
Well, it has to be
It ha-
more defined than it is now.
Because this is the first time I'm mentioning it, but this would require a very, very, very comprehensive articulation of what you want to do, but there's roadmaps within the stuff I've printed out to give us the resources we need to get this off the ground. But one of the first things that we should do would be generating a survey, seeing how open the village or town people are to this idea, and then going from there. If people are very opposed to raising taxes, maybe you could create a credit system and things like that.
No,
Or-
it has to be more specific, and if you're not willing to work on, I mean,
Well,
if you don't have the time to work on it, I beg your pardon. I wonder how,
It's-
well, us look
Well,
at the
I don't have an
material.
MBA. Like it's a very complex financially, and also measuring out the amount of impervious surface coverage. Do you just use GIS metrics, or do you use building permit applications and things like that? Different methods have different pros and cons, and it's all in here if you want to take a look at
If I could
it.
jump in, so historically speaking, Rachel, you can speak to this too, and Don as well. This is like exactly the kind of thing that should be flushed out. It reminds me of the municipal garbage idea. And actually, David Gilmore, the village planner, is sort of supportive of this idea as well. So I definitely think it warrants looking at. One of the things that I recall him saying, I think, isn't there a mechanism whereby if you pay into this utility and something were to happen on your property as a result of stormwater, that money could be used to mitigate damage done by stormwater or something?
Well, I mean, it's up to me or whoever writes the idea behind it, because here's a little table of all the options that you could undertake. There's option A, B, C. All right, so you have startup strategy. It's very simplified. This is the easiest one to do, and then you gradually get more and more tiered and structured. And that is just a lot area, and then another area is lot area in conjunction with generalized factors to estimate impervious surface coverage. Then you get more and more advanced. Or you could have it part of your utility bill, separate from the actual water bill, things like that. It's these articulations that I can make a recommendation for, but I'd rather undertake a project like this with the guidance and preference of the village board members to say that we want to do it this way, this way, and this way. So
Would you be comfortable doing the same thing you just did for the EPC for the village board at a meeting? Just throwing this out there and seeing it.
I mean, I could. I mean, I would have to work my work schedule around a lot. I mean, for the next few months, I'm quite busy. I'm an immigration lawyer, or not lawyer. Apparently, I wish I was a lawyer, but anyhow, yeah. Right now, through April 23rd, I have 0 days off. So, and
Is
things
this
like.
something that would apply to all properties, existing properties, not just new development?
Oh, no, it's existing. Whoever uses our stormwater system, meaning anyone who lets runoff off their property, is applicable to this.
But
If-
one way to start would be new stuff, just to get going.
But you would have zero amount. Like, the thing is that everyone uses stormwater, new or not.
I know.
New properties use have a lot less runoff because the lots themselves are undeveloped.
If you take that $100,000 number and you go by the 8,000 people that's $3 quarterly.
Well,
Yeah, so,
well, you
so
would
you're
charge-
not talking about a tax of 2% or 3%, you're talking about.
it's a $3
adding on to the
surcharge
water
every
bill.
month.
$3. I think it's an idea worth looking into.
Well-
Here, John, here's an interesting example right here. Here's like a tiered rate for residential and non-residential. So you have pervious surface area of that, the monthly charge would be that, and that's a residential. But if it was non-residential, you have $10 monthly charge, things like that. And there's pros and cons to each of these options. And then you have tiered rate for, and a variable rate for non-residential, so $177 per month, $24 a year.
So you can't make you can't go to the village board and propose anything?
I could, but it would be very
It'd
hindering.
be like
Well,
tonight.
let's talk more about it,
Yeah.
because what I could do is I could email you the proposal that I had for the plastic ban law, or the proposals that we've done in the past.
Oh, good.
Really, we're talking about breaking the issue down into, a 2-page
Right.
presentation to kind of.
And no, I want to move this forward, and I don't want to push you to be
Yeah.
able to do it.
I do too.
If you can send me a couple links just on the wiki.
I'm gonna give you this.
Well, not the kitchen sink, because I won't read the whole kitchen sink.
Well, I mean,
Something I can bring to the planner.
okay,
I'll probably
here,
be the first person.
here I'm gonna give you a case study from a population that's
Right,
similar
okay.
to this right
He's
now.
privy to all this too.
Okay.
He's spoken about it before.
And then we can
That's
figure
good.
out whether it's something we want to bring to the board, because I think it's have to start with the board.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, definitely.
So, more encompassing.
Yeah, but it's it's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, here's Union, Ohio.
No, we don't need to hear that.
Well, I want to talk about the specific. You wanted to know specifics, right?
Okay.
All right, no, you can leave if you want, but
Whoa, all right, hold on. Let's
all right.
let's forward what you have on this already, and we'll give you, I'll forward to you the proposal that was
Okay.
done, or that I did.
We did get an agenda, but.
Last item was plastic bags.
Just
We don't
email me
have much
whatever
to
else.
say
Just
about
take
it,
that. And then,
Except that, I want to invite the village
Yeah,
planner to
yeah,
one of our
just do that,
meetings
it's fine.
for
And,
myself or someone to see him.
just-
And that's.
Okay.
Thank
John?
you.
Okay.
Wait.
Hold on a second, hold on.
Done.
Hold on.
Sorry
Take a
about
look
your
at this
day.
PowerPoint as well.
Rachel.
My email is, this is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have training all day.
In conjunction with the conversation of stormwater
Guys,
management,
excuse
Oh
me,
my God.
hold on. Go ahead.
in conjunction with the conversation of stormwater management, previously the prior sitting village board was, presentation was given to them by an intern who has been serving then trustee Ariana Vasco regarding impervious surfaces and the type of like driveways that could be made out of a semi-pervious material.
Permeable surface.
A permeable surface, or semi-permeable, depending on and the village board was very receptive to it. They had asked for additional information to be provided by the researcher, but that person was graduating. It may be something that you could resurrect in conjunction with this conversation, especially if you're talking about new building in this area.
Who would
Just a
have-
historic point of view.
Who would have that?
I could bring up the minutes from the meeting.
Would you?
Yeah.
That would be super.
Yeah, I talked to Planner Dave about that, but the issue is the GIS map specificity. It doesn't go within under 30 meters. If you get under 30 meters, the accuracy is questionable, which is a problem for at least using the National Land Cover data sets.
And the last point I want to make, I did approach Miriam Strauss, and she said she would come to that meeting and would love to be a commissioner, and I didn't know about the change in the meeting times. She's a very early riser, and by 8 o'clock at night she's done. So she was like, well, 7 o'clock, I could maybe do. Could you make the meetings at 6? So I don't know if we're going to meet at 7:30. I don't
We
know.
have to, I don't like the 7:30, and when does the group that meets before is actually finish?
6 o'clock. They're slated from 6 o'clock to 7.
I know what they're slated, but would be.
Depends on how long they
they've
go.
they've only met maybe 6 times. It varies greatly.
Sure, like us.
I
Well,
wonder if we could flip with them.
They were. I wouldn't presume to speak for them. I can tell you they were receptive to the idea of meeting earlier.
Meeting earlier.
You
They
should
were
probably
happy
do
about
this,
meeting
yeah.
at 6 o'clock.
Right.
That's
Okay.
But
Well,
you give it down.
Thanks.
Don, would you follow up on that, see if we can get in time?
Yeah, it sounds like it's the NFL battle. I can ask the question.
Are there any other groups that meet for which you're secretary, or?
I am the scribe for both of the board, both the affordable housing and the EPC at this time. The secretary for the board is intending on leaving his position in June-ish. Has not given notice, and no one is aware at this time what the later plan is.
Okay, that sounds about right.
And if it were to be too much of an issue, because the way that I had worded it in my budget request was the EPC would like to request a dedicated secretary be assigned to the EPC, and if one could not be found, that the village board allow for the hiring of a secretary from beyond the current village staff.
Well, that's what the arrangement with Andrea Russo.
Right. So is that something that if we found that this meeting time was less than
Well,
conducive, could we go from without if need be?
Well, I think that the other part of it is that the village staff is trained to do the automatic camera things, I think.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
And there, it would be no camera for the affordable housing if you met at the exact same time.
Yeah,
I got it. Got it.
good to know.
All right.
Well, I have a camera.
Before you
Just
go,
my
I have a
phone,
question.
just voice
Consistently, the room is available on Thursdays,
Yeah, no, I
if that were
understand.
agreeable to anybody else.
So, let's I'll look into seeing what flexibility there might be in.
Let's not make a change real quick.
Yeah, but let's-
I'm having trouble enough getting here
Yeah,
this date.
nothing happens quickly in
Oh,
government.
we know that now, don't we?
Nothing
I've
happens.
learned that. I have a question for you off
Yeah.
camera.
Okay.
Okay, so would you like to adjourn the meeting so that I can turn off?
Okay, let's go ahead and adjourn, guys.
Thank you
Everyone
very
good?
much.
Okay, so
John.
who's motioning to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and who's the
I
second?
passed that.
Okay,
Very good.
hold on.
Yeah, I need myself a voicemail,
No.
that's meeting change time, so
Um,
she's got to turn the camera off, so.
Oh, okay, Flint.
Wait, before you